I'm going to call up Thomas Biskin. 31 years ago, Tom Biskin graduated college. He married his wife, Kathy, and began working in the rail industry. He has served as a village trustee from 2007 to 11.
Good evening. Thank you, Vince. Thank you to the Chamber for the generous invitation, and good evening to all the guests. 1994, my wife and I wanted to build a home, and we came out to Manhattan several times. And in the course of that, my daughter, who's in the audience now, 20 years old, wasn't even 2. She was sitting in the car seat. We would stop and talk to several people and said, how do you like the community? And we got a resounding, you're going to love the community. That's one reason why I've gotten involved over the past several years. I want other people who are the next generation behind me to be able to come to Manhattan and experience that same good feeling. Other reasons why I'm running for village trustee this year. The village is running about a $250,000 surplus in tax revenue over and above what was budgeted. They are putting that into the savings account. I would rather see the 2-cent a gallon gasoline tax eliminated and start reducing the utility taxes, which, although they were set up to be even to the property tax reduction, they have hit certain businesses like Kirby's Bakery extra hard. I've had several conversations with Kathy, and I understand where she's coming from there. I would like to do that. The village still has at least $4 million in the bank from the Enbridge deal, so I don't know why we're putting more money in savings when the economy is still very tough. We still have foreclosures in town, and I think we need to take that course of action. Secondly, I would like to see, if the board would approve it, the appointment of a volunteer citizens committee to look at all budget items, taxes, and spending. I don't think there's anything funny going on in the budget. I would especially like them to zero in on engineering and legal fees that the town is incurring. Get some other eyes on it. I really believe in having another set of eyes look at the situation. It doesn't hurt, and it gets citizens involved. Now, I want to get to business. We all know the town needs more business to grow the tax base. It's been a tough economy, but one way to do that, I think, is to get out of the way of some of these businesses, and that means reduce and streamline or eliminate certain regulations you don't need, and especially with fees that businesses might be charged by the village. And that segues into the village administrator's salary. I've run a very straightforward campaign. Every year I walk door to door. 2 years ago I did, and I lost the election by 50 votes. One of the reasons I believe that election went that way, the people spoke. I knocked on hundreds of doors, and I've done that again this year. And 2 years ago, people looked at me, that's when the economy was really bad, and they would say, what are we paying the village administrator? And I said, well, like 140, but the board, including myself, voted the past 2 years to freeze the salary. And they'd still stand there and look at me like, you don't get it. We're losing businesses. We've got foreclosures. People are getting pay cuts. People are losing their jobs. That's too much. So I made a decision, if I was going to throw my hat in the ring in 2013, that has to change. And again, this year, speaking to hundreds of residents, I've almost walked the entire town now. It's just a week and a half before the election. I have had not one person take up an argument against that position. It's unanimous that needs to come down. And I will, if elected, speak up at every board meeting about that high salary until it is brought down. And if that means that there is a change of personnel in that job, then that will happen. But I promise I will do that. Now, that segues into the last thing I want to talk about, which is getting back to business. I've gone to a few board meetings recently, and something really struck me the wrong way the first meeting of the year at the beginning of January. I was looking through the agenda that was put out to the public, and looking there was mention from the part-time building inspector about the need to revamp Manhattan's liquor licenses and liquor license fees. Now, the part-time building inspector sent this memo to the village administrator and detailed all the changes in the part-time liquor license structure. And from what I could tell in the audience, one of the local bar owners was completely taken by surprise. If that's the case, that is not the way to communicate to the businesses in town that are here, doing business, paying taxes. Furthermore, at the end of the part-time building inspector's dissertation on liquor licenses, the comment was made, currently Manhattan's license fees are $650 less than the average license fee in neighboring communities, mainly the communities to the north. He called for the village increasing license fees by $200 a year for each of the next 3 years. Now, nowhere in that memo was there a mention of we're getting a lot of increased police calls, we're incurring a lot of overtime dealing with bars. There was no mention in that memo from a part-time building inspector about the potential economic impact of raising these liquor license fees on new restaurants or new places that want a liquor license coming to Manhattan. Will that negatively impact them? And the communities to the north are much larger than Manhattan. They may be $2,000 a year as opposed to our $1,000 a year. The number of residents they have are much greater. They have an interstate highway. They have other main roads. We don't. We have 7,000 people and one state highway. That wasn't mentioned. And interestingly, in this memo that was put out in the village literature at that meeting, there was no comment from the development director. Now, the development director is there to make sure we attract new business. I really am concerned, and if I were a board member, I would have openly criticized that, either behind the scenes or at the meeting, because of the fact the development director should be involved in this process. This should not be done at the direction of a part-time building inspector. And lastly, there were no comments in this document from the village administrator, one way or the other. Now, this is the top position in administration in Manhattan, and it was put out for the board to consider and the board to mull over. How can we be putting this out, this type of possible policy position, and say, yeah, we want business, but we just raised the liquor licenses $600 over the past 3 years, and now restaurants won't come in because they don't want to pay the higher license. Keep that in mind. The analysis was not there. Somebody needs to be doing the analysis, and then we might be more successful with business in our community. Thank you for your time. Good night.
Thank you, Thomas. I'd like to call up our next candidate, Vince DeBono, who has been a resident of Manhattan for the past 10 years, and he values a strong sense of community and excellent school system that our village maintains. Born and raised in New Jersey, he's had the opportunity to live in a number of different areas in the country, from large urban centers to the suburbs. As our children approach school age, we look for a community that had strong family values and exceptional public education, which is what brought his family to Manhattan. As a village trustee, his goal would be to strengthen Manhattan through attracting and developing new business, supporting and expanding our existing businesses, and fiscal responsibility by ensuring prudent, transparent, and accountable local government. Vince?
Thank you. Thanks to the Chamber for inviting us tonight. I was appointed as trustee when Trustee Atkins left. So I was going through my first election here and learning quite a bit. So it's interesting. Coming from that perspective, though, by training I'm a chiropractor. I've spent a lot of years in schools, and I've had the opportunity of opening a lot of private practices as well. I was in private practice for about 11 years when I got out of school, and I understand the struggle. Private practices are essentially small businesses, especially for chiropractors. We're not attached to large hospital systems. We're independent practitioners. It is tough. And anyone who tells you it's not has never owned a business. I don't care if it's a chiropractor, a bakery, an auto shop. It's hard. It's all on you. I've also had the opportunity, though, for the past 8 years, I was the Vice President of Academic Services at National University of Health Sciences and responsible for 12 million of the 22 million budget of that university by running the faculty. So I've had a lot of administrative experience in the nonprofit arena, which is most colleges are nonprofit. What's the definition of nonprofit? You're ruled by your policies. You have to publish your policies. You have to publish your budget. You have to publish your 4 highest compensated people in it. That's the world of nonprofits. So how does that lead me back to what can we do for businesses in Manhattan? Well, I mean, number one, what I learned when I got out of school is success breeds success. If I'm going to come to a town, I'm looking for a town that has a thriving business, successful businesses. I have a lot of colleagues who got out of school and said, you know, that town doesn't have a chiropractor. I'm going to that's a gold mine. I'm going to go in there and clean it out. Guess what? Within 6 months, their doors are shut. There's a reason there wasn't a chiropractor in that town. Don't think it hasn't been tried, because the town wasn't ready for that business or the environment wasn't there. If I throw a seed on this stage, throw a couple of mustard seeds on the stage, guess what? They're going to sit there because the environment's not right. What we have to do as trustees and as the board is to deliver and make the environment better for small businesses. It has to be there. If I'm coming to look into this town and I see businesses are struggling, restaurants are closing, what's going on here? Why? Yeah, rooftops matter to a certain extent, but so does the environment of the current business people in town. Medium income's important. But there's a lot of demographics out there we have to start capturing. It was mentioned that a lot of our residents go to AutoZone to buy stuff. Well, we could turn this around a little bit too. How many 60442 zip codes are captured at Jewel, AutoZone, Walmart? You can also use that into a different aspect and say, hey, got a lot of residents coming over here. How about you bring in a little express store here? Or how about you let them capture some of this here? Or go to their competitors and do it. It's bringing in, I'm a big fan of the free market. I think competition is great. I think it makes other businesses successful. By being the only person in town who does this, that's where complacency can come in as well. So we can't be afraid of competition. I think what I've learned over time is I hear a lot of residents say, we need this, we need that, we want this, we want this, we want this. What do we need? What do we need as a town? What's going to support our school systems? What's going to foster our business environment here? How do we take their current businesses, make this strong enough? And I think it's not just the businesses. The entire community has to start to get together here. I've been a coach in many football and baseball in Manhattan for a long time, since I've been here 8 years. And the one thing I've seen, it's kind of like the town. We're fragmented. Whether you like it or not, we are. We get little fragments over here. We have this group doesn't talk to this group won't talk to this group. They don't like what they're doing. We have a wonderful facility around Barn. That could be a jewel. We have to start showcasing this stuff. The wine festival I attended this year was one of the best times I had all year. That was great. But we got to get together. I hear a lot about taxes. Taxes are too high. How do we lessen the tax burden? Hey, the village is part of the taxes. The school's the biggest part, of course, but that's true for any community. Number 2 is the fire district. Number 3 is the village. Number 4 is the park. Okay? The park district. Now, I can't control other governing boards. However, we can take your concerns as our constituents to those boards and say, hey, we're paying a lot of money in taxes for this. What are we getting? How do we coordinate our efforts? How do we make this fertile soil for businesses to grow? And I think looking at what we have good businesses in Manhattan. We have viable businesses that have been here a long time. They've weathered tough storms. They've weathered tough economic times. Get them to turn the corner. Look at what we have in our backyard. We have a facility that draws hundreds of thousands of people 2 or 3 times a year. most retail stores make their profit 2 weeks out of the year. The other time they're just waiting for Christmas to come back. This can happen here, but we need the right businesses coming into play. So it looks like my time's coming to an end. Again, I think what I can bring is some experience from an administrative point of view. I think one of the things I'd like to push for is creation of a small business task force, bringing in ideas from businesses, residents on what do we need to do. And the other thing is to organize and, like I said, I'm a big fan of policies, of putting policies out on the website, making sure our policies are known to the public. How do we operate? And the biggest goal is to take the current business plan that's on the website and develop, that's dated, the demographics are dated. Let's get that up to date. Let's bring that up to date. Let's bring in some more of the other demographics we can capture and bring the business plan that's on the village website up to today's standards, reflect today's models on how we can push things in. Because, guys, quite frankly, if you're looking for something today, where are you looking? It's going to be on the internet. It's not going to be, let me make a phone call or let me write a letter. That doesn't happen anymore. So we need to make sure that all of our resources, all of our presentations are up to date, current, and again, let's make that fertile soil and get everyone growing again. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Vince. And now I'd like to call up next candidate, Thomas Doyle. Thomas?
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm Tom Doyle. I was born and raised in the city of Chicago on the south side. I went to St. Margaret's of Scotland School, Chicago Vocational High School. And my father died when I was 14 years old, and that was pretty devastating to me. My mentors died. I didn't know what the hell to do. So I was on my own, pretty much. Me, my mother, my younger brother. I just had to be self-taught. Learn how to run my life, how to cook, clean, get my life going on. I started off in the automotive business, where I learned in high school. And I liked it. I enjoyed it. I found I was good at it. I've been doing it for like 44 years now. I had a couple businesses. The economy took me out. The last one was in 79, when we had the gas crunch. I had a good auto repair business on vans, custom vans. They were stealing them. I had money hand over fist. But then when the gas crunch came in, you couldn't get gas in cars. That was the end of it. They weren't stealing them anymore. Lost the business. One worked for somebody else. On that, in the van conversion business, the company sold out. I went with a new guy, and we come out here, Manhattan, 1980, Murphy's Ford, trying to buy that building. Well, that didn't pan out. From there, I went to Mokina, where they opened up the business. I worked for the guy for 2 years, and that didn't work out too good. And then from there, I worked from Dave's Auto. I managed a shop over there for 20 years. But when I was in this town, it really attracted me. Well, this is a great place to live. I'd really like to live here. Well, sure enough, 16 years ago, I bought a house here. The dream. The good dream, too. Had to put a roof on, new windows, plumbing, electric, everything, just like a new houseowner would do. 12 years later, I opened up a business. And been pretty good. People in this town have supported me very, very much. I really like it here, like all the people. People have been supporting me very, very much. But 4 years ago, the bottom fell out. They did the cash for clunkers. Scared the hell out of me. Everybody bought new cars. Automotive industry didn't know where to go from there. What kind of parts to have, what not to have. Really put a hurt on my business. But I had still people in town supporting me. They bought all new cars. When I would order parts, sit there and wait for parts. Because there was no manufacturer making them. Nobody was making them. Nobody was delivering them. Everybody was out of jobs. Nobody could afford to fix their cars. I helped a lot of people in this town. I lost a lot of money trying to help them. I believed in them. Tom, my car, I need to find another job. I didn't get the money to fix the car. I helped them. A lot of them did pay me back with no problem, thank God. Some, they couldn't. You win some, you lose some. But I thought, now I'm getting older. I'm probably going to semi-retire out of business. Well, I'm going to move on in life. I'm just dabbling in other little business ideas to stay in the town. I'm still going to keep business in town, but I'm looking at another one to add on to my business, extend it a bit. Maybe in used cars. I got people always asking about it. And another one I got into is a parts end for golf carts. I make exclusive selling parts around here in this town. Hopefully I'll be able to open a store if everything works out fine. And as long as I've got that little extra free time, I mean, I'm going to run for trustee. See what it's like. See if I can do. Maybe better the community. Because the community supported me. I think it's about time I could help see if I could support it back. My wife said to me, "Are you nuts?" Well, you married me. Who's nuts here? But the support of the banks to help me, couple of banks in town, I almost had to close the doors. I had to borrow because I needed new equipment. But the business wasn't there. Thank God for the banks that they believed in me. And it shows a lot of support in the community. For the people, we in back business, I shop everything I can possibly in this town. The only thing I don't get in this town, maybe I have to go to Lowe's or Sam's. That's about it. Otherwise, I spend every penny I got in this town, me and my wife. Eat, bank at the banks, grocery stores, gas, cleaners, the bars, the restaurants, everywhere I possibly can. We got great schools here, too. And probably bringing more business in this town, which I think would be great, but we have to have rooftops, like you said. I got kind of an idea, I don't know if everybody agree with it or not, when I was talking about the golf cart thing, is everything going green. Gas is going up. And then I thought, well, how about people, golf carts, drive them around? Everybody gets to know everybody. Maybe you'll ride around, you'll meet somebody you never met before. Talk about a golf cart. Maybe you have parades. Put them in the parades. Parents taking their kids to the ball games. Go up to the creamery. Go grocery shopping. Go to the hardware store. I mean, I know it's not a good safety thing. You can't drive down 52. All you can do is cross it. But if we can have each subdivision connected in each subdivision, maybe we'll meet more new people, make it a more friendly town. And the builders might even look at us, too. Going, ooh, it's kind of an idea. Maybe instead of going to build a new Lenox, maybe they'll come here instead. But this is kind of, a good community to start off with something. Try something new. And I hope this will all work out. I'm going to do the best I can to be a good leader here for a trustee. I know I'm new at it. I'm planning to learn all I can about it. When people come up and ask me, "Hey, Tom, what's this, what's that?" Well, I got to find out the inside information of all of the ways the public works, Patrick's work, intergovernment works, police department works. At least when somebody comes to ask me a question, hopefully I'll know what I'm talking about. And thank you for your time, and I hope you'll vote for me.
Thanks, Thomas. I want to call up now Patricia Lucas, who's our next candidate.
Thank you, Vince, and the Chamber of Commerce, and everybody here tonight for having us, and thanks, Mike, for helping me not kill myself on stairs. Tonight I wanted to talk to you about why I'm running for re-election, but first I'm going to give you a little bit of background of who I am. I am the trustee that oversees finance at the village. I have a background in finance. I graduated from DePaul University with a full academic scholarship. Since then, I have been in the financial field for a little over 30 years. In the last 15 years, I have had my own financial planning practice. I located that practice in Manhattan from South Holland back in 2004. I'm married. My husband and I have been together for 27 years with 2 children. We came to Manhattan in 2003 when we were looking for a better school district for our children. I grew up in rural Crete. Manhattan reminded me a lot of Crete growing up. That's one of the reasons I fell in love with this town. But I primarily came here like most families that have came here for this school district. As I said, I've worked in the financial field for 30 years with 15 in my practice. I currently oversee about $32 million of clients' money, mostly outside of this town. The only advertising I do in my business is local. Most of my business comes from word of mouth and clients that have been with me 20 or 30 years. I decided to run for re-election because I'm very proud of a lot of the accomplishments we've made in the last 4 years that Mayor Borgo already spent the time discussing, so I won't rehash all that. But I do want to point out a couple of things. One, we did add video gambling recently. Some people may support that, some may not. But the local bar owners, I know, support it. They are earning thousands of dollars in additional revenue per month, which is great for them. They need it. A lot of the businesses in the town are struggling, myself included. I've been doing much better recently, but when the markets crashed back in 2007-08, my business income dropped about 50% because I told my clients to sit tight and don't panic and just ride through it. You know, so I understand what it is to run a business. I rented office space for about 8 years in South Holland before I moved my practice here. So I do understand the logistics of having to pay rent and utilities and all those expenses, even though I chose to move my practice into my home in Manhattan. Since I joined the board, one of the primary things I wanted to do was bridge the divide between the board. I sat through about 2 years of meetings before I ran for the village board as the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce governmental liaison. I was bothered by the fact there was such a divide on our village board at the time, which is one of the reasons I got involved. Prior to that, though, I've also volunteered. I'm currently on the Educational Foundation Board. I'm on the business committee for the Chamber of Commerce. I've coached the Manhattan Patriots. I also spent several years on the Manhattan Park District Foundation, of which a couple of those years I ran that wine festival that Vince mentioned. Which is one of the best things I think this town has going for them, is that Round Barn property. I think with the addition of the disc golf course, it's going to be a great, great location for people to come to. So I'm also trying to figure out how we market our businesses better, even for that property. I know a new disc golf store just opened up here in Manhattan that most people don't know exist. Hopefully we can figure out a way to coordinate with the Park District better on marketing, the different businesses that can benefit from that property. Besides, the accomplishments that Bill pointed out, I wanted to point out a couple things about us diversifying the revenues of the Village of Manhattan. I'm very proud of the fact that we've lowered the property taxes in this town by over 25% since I've been on the village board. There's a lot of misinformation circulating out there about us raising taxes consistently or raising this, raising that. Our whole goal when we diversified the revenue sources in the village was to make it revenue neutral. We added utility taxes and lowered the property tax to give us a more stable income stream to the village. We did this on the advice of outside bond counsel who advised us that because property taxes were declining and thus our revenue would be declining, that we needed to diversify how we got revenue into the village so that we could be more pleasing to the bond rating services. As Bill mentioned, we did raise our rating from A- to A+ with Standard & Poor's. Why this is so important is we're about to restructure all of our long-term debt in the next couple years when they're available to be restructured. Most bonds, when they're issued, have call provisions and you can't restructure for maybe 10 years. A lot of these bonds were issued in 06 and in 08 and, or I think 03 too. But anyways, regardless, we're looking at restructuring a bunch of the bond issues in the next couple years. So our financial rating is huge on what interest rates we will pay as a village and thus what rates the taxpayers will also pay. So that was very important to restructure that revenue stream so that the rating services give us better ratings and thus we can qualify for lower interest rates in the future. We will also be looking at Brookstone Springs SSA debt, which we're hoping to restructure also at the same time, because all of the debt we had, which was taken back out in the early 2000s, is at a much higher interest rate than you can issue debt today. So hopefully when we accomplish that over in the next few years, that will help the taxpayers also with lower debt. I also wanted to go over my tax bill dropping from, I took my tax bill, I posted this on Facebook a little while ago because I've been reading a lot of misinformation, as I said, on some of the websites about property taxes. My tax bill in 2009, the Village of Manhattan's tax portion came up to 11%. It was around $778. With the most recent restructuring with utility taxes, my 2012 tax bill, the Village of Manhattan's portion was $557 or 8%. So we have dropped the taxes from 2009 to 2012 by 27.5% on those tax bills. Most people get a tax bill that is, say $7,000 and they panic and say, oh my God, we're paying so much to the village. What you don't realize is what Vince pointed out before too, is that the majority of that goes to other taxing bodies. It doesn't go to the Village of Manhattan. We are a small portion of the overall tax bill. What will I do if I get reelected? One, I want to make sure that we restructure the long-term debts properly. Two, I want to keep a watchful eye on the village budget. It's been doing very well. We've balanced it every year. We haven't raised taxes to balance the budget. We have borrowed from reserves in the past. That's one of the reasons why we're kind of putting a little bit of money back in savings. It's twofold. One, we took $1 million out of our reserves when the financial markets crashed to help balance the budget so we wouldn't have to raise taxes to taxpayers. We also have a huge issue with the state of Illinois right now as they're discussing borrowing some of the village's shared revenue taxes and using it for the state level and maybe paying us back in the future. This comes up to $150,000 to $200,000 a year that they're talking about canceling our shared revenue taxes. Because of that, we realize we're running a slight surplus on some of the taxes in town, not the utility taxes because we have a deficit on those, but on the other taxes. We realize that. We're looking at it. Kevin and I have been talking closely for the last couple of months on what we're going to do about that at the end of the fiscal year. But we've also been watching very closely what the state's doing to try to decide whether or not we're going to keep that money aside, because if they cancel that revenue source, we need to have that money come from somewhere. We're counting on that in next year's budget. So that's one of the reasons why that money is still being set aside. Another comment I wanted to make is about shopping local in this town. I love Ace Hardware's sign that says, put your money where your house is. I am an avid supporter of businesses in this town. There are weeks at a time since I work from home that I don't leave Manhattan. I find it amusing if I ever get out of this town. I pay no gas money hardly. I gas up here in town too, but I don't leave that often. I do mostly everything local. I have found that the majority of my household purchases can be made in this town. We don't go out to eat often. That's, where I'm just very frugal. But, we try to shop as locally as possible with everything that we purchase in our household. I also want to make sure that if we do modify the building standards coming forward, I know there's been some talk about that among different candidates, I want to make sure that we keep a close eye on keeping them comparable to our neighboring villages. I have no problem with tweaking some of our building standards on the housing level. There might be some fine-tuning that we could do, but I just want to make sure that we stay comparable to the area municipalities, because I want to be comparable in the school district. I don't want us to be the last place people leave to. I want us to be on the same level as the other towns. I also want to make sure that we continue the infrastructure improvements in this town. They got put on the back burner for a long time in this town, and we've done a lot in the last 4 years that I've been on the board that I'm hoping that they continue with those type of programs. We are looking into a TIF district, tax increment financing district for the downtown. It's something that we've been pondering back and forth, and I know that they've been researching to see if there are incentives we can do to help replenish the downtown. These are things that are in the works in the back scenes that have not been discussed publicly because it's not been finalized and it's just being at the preliminary stages. So that's another thing I'd like to pursue looking into. And I want to continue running the village like a business. I've been told by people to stop running the village like a business. I'm baffled by that comment. To me, it should be run like a business. I did not get into politics to be a politician. I have not been out campaigning, if you guys know that. I do taxes. I'm a registered tax preparer. I am swamped this time of year, working 7 days a week. I don't have the time to go door to door. Yes, Kathy Clapp, I don't charge enough for what I do for my clients. It's more of a courtesy, so I'm not making a lot working 7 days a week, but I'm doing it because I care for my clients and I do it for them. But because of that, it's taken really away from me being able to run and go out door to door like everybody else is. I'm hoping that I get elected or reelected on my credentials and what I contribute to this village and not on the door-to-door going about, because I just don't have the time to do that during tax season. Definitely no one from my field set the election cycle at April 9th with April 15th right around the corner. But I'm just hoping, that people understand that in my job, I am a registered investment advisor. I am a fiduciary to my clients. I have a legal obligation to take care of them first, me second, no matter what. I treat the villages the same way. I have a fiduciary responsibility to all the taxpayers here to put your best interests first, not mine. Honestly, when I first started running for this position, I didn't even know it was a paid position. I do so much volunteer work in this town since I moved here that I had no idea it was a paid position. I found out shortly before the election last time that I got paid for this. I was like, wow. So many of us are in thankless positions in this town doing volunteer work with the school board and the park board and the Park District Foundation, and all those positions aren't paid, and those people are still trying very hard to do what's best for this town. And I truly believe that the majority of the people, and matter of fact, all the people that are sitting over there, care about the best interests of this town. I'm hoping to help keep bridging the divide between the board. When I first moved to this town, Jamie introduced himself the day I moved in. I was the first resident in Leyland Bridge, and he came and welcomed us as we were moving in, and I was floored by that. I'm like, wow, the mayor came and welcomed us to come to this town. We did develop a friendship at the beginning stages there. We served on the high school configuration committee together. And to be honest, I didn't vote for Bill in the first election. I voted for Jamie. I knew Jamie. He seemed like a great guy, and he is a great guy. And I think Bill's a great guy now, too. I think both of them bring different things to the table. And I just want you guys to consider me because I bring the financial side to the table. We want to keep our village financially strong. We want to keep our budgets balanced and not cave to political pressure no matter what. And I'm hoping I can keep bridging the divide between the village board and get these gentlemen to work together. And hopefully we keep running it like a business, as I said, and keep transparency and accountability to everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia. And our last speaker tonight, last candidate is Chris Lucasi. Chris, come on up.
Hello, everyone. Just want to thank this opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to come up and speak a little bit to you guys here tonight. First of all, I want to apologize for not getting to meet with everyone prior to this day. I've been working through the passing of my mother, and then a month later, the passing of my brother. So I've been hit with a little bit of unfortunate luck here. But nonetheless, a little bit about me. I moved to Manhattan about 7 years ago. I live in Brookstone Springs, only to get hit with a little bit of a tax burden. It's a lovely neighborhood. I love the community. I love everything about this town. Background-wise, I started when I was 15. I became a carpenter. I left high school early every day and went to work, hammering nails and whatnot, only to build the single-family homes in Brookstone Springs. Little did I know I'd live there years later. I then started up a business in remodeling, kitchens, bathrooms, basements, 7 years strong. I loved what I did, at the time, and I get a phone call one day. It's from my friend. He's like, "We really need a hand here." And I'm like, "Well, what are you talking about?" And he worked for Rush University Medical Center, so I was recruited as an infrastructure engineer. I currently work there for the last year and a half or so. I spec all network equipment for a $1 billion non-for-profit campus. There's 24 buildings on campus. I'm in charge of all the infrastructure. I single-handedly made 20,000 connections, gave them network connectivity for their patient monitoring, phones, and all that good stuff. Business-wise, there I do all quoting. So my role there is to spec all their network equipment. I take it out to quote, then I negotiate their prices so we're getting the biggest bang for our buck. Again, it's a great opportunity to work there. And, I've talked with a lot of people in the neighborhood and in the community about, we want this and we want that, and it's simple to sit up here and, point the finger at everybody and this is wrong, but, everyone has said it. We got to come together and, come up with a game plan. Me personally, I'd like to see the businesses and the communities take a poll, put a survey out there. What do you guys want to see? Let's put it in a spreadsheet. I was always told, when in doubt, draw it out. What do we need? We've got qualified people on the board to make decisions, but, sometimes, everyone's opinions get in the way. But what I would like to see is everyone give their opinion on what we need, what's going to work for us, Back to what I think. I think that we could recruit things like the Warrior Dash. It's a 6-mile run through cornfields and jumping over this, that, or the other, running through forests. What does that bring for us? It brings a huge revenue. It brings people in your businesses. What does New Lenox and Frankfurt have? They've got Proud American Days. They've got Frankfurt, wine, Frankfurt Fest. We could do a wine tasting event. There's so many things that we could do as a community to bring people in here. Everyone spoke of rooftops. I personally know 8 people that have bought houses in the last year, none of which were in Manhattan due to the taxes. I've had incentives, thrown at me, buy a big screen TV. Oh, that sounds great, but that $6,000 doesn't sound so good for a townhome. So, there's things like giving the budget a haircut, a pinch that we could work on. There's lots of things that we could do together, board included, everyone together to make decisions, what needs to be done. So I really appreciate the opportunity to tell a little bit about myself. And again, I apologize for not meeting with all of you personally, but I look forward to meeting all of you individually. And thank you again.
Well, thanks, Chris. That concludes the festivities for tonight, at least for the speeches. We'll have some soft drinks over there so people can get to know each other a little better and follow up with the candidates on some questions. I want to thank all 10 candidates for showing up, and hopefully you came away with tonight with a little bit more knowledge. So when you go vote in 2 weeks, you'll have some information that you learned tonight. Thank you all for coming.